Hey guys, it's me again, Alex there with us. Now, checklist. Let's see. He resumed after he was getting chased. 11 of them survived, all of Deku's, and 4 of the women's. Then, let's see, they went on, he met the Empress again. They assembled a little army to go march across and try to defeat the ghoul threat. Deku's assault went very well, including 1,500 gladiators. I believe I said he lost around 100 or 250 to a horde of taking of 1,500, with the rest being against a horde of 3,000, with 1,500 being killed and the rest being pulled back into a retreating motion. Now let's cut back to some of the other fights. So I'll say there's actually like 4. There's Margaret, Wolfheart, and Gary. Margaret's assault goes relatively the same as Deku's. They meet the same opposition, but her strategy is a bit different. She has the men forming a shield wall, being pushed up by swordsmen, and having a section of them defending the back lines just in case, like sort of covering their backs, with archers in the middle along with the wizards. Their attack goes relatively similar in how successful it is, losing minimum casualties. I'll say she has around 2,000, and she loses a little, like over 500. Because after all, they're being charged at, and they had several more flyers, like a dozen or so more flyers than Deku, so those flyers did real good work. Now comes the Gary. His forces had a bit more rough of a time. What happens to them is that they get into the middle of the town. Bad idea. Then several of them sprang out of the buildings, crashing into his lines. Gary himself is alive, with him being able to organize a sensible defensive circle, where they were similar to the Romans or Spartans, with the shield wall, stabbing in and out, with soldiers with axes and swords ready for any that tried to leap over. With the archers doing their job, he also had roughly 2,000 with actually 3 wizards. I believe I also said Margaret had 3 fire wizards. Considering how many men they have for this, wizards are the most highly valued people for the simple fact that they can cause massive amounts of damage. Now Wolfheart, with 2,000 troops, the rest of they brought their armies, and Margaret's force was made up of 1,000 of the Wolfheart's troops and 1,000 of Gary's troop, with the several sections of the gladiators as well as with Wolfheart's men ready to hold up positions. Gladiators not know to do anything, so they hold their lines. Some were also sent over to Deku's area to hold their positions. And Wolfheart, with his mounted cavalry, did not go well at all. At first it seemed pretty normal. They were cutting through the enemies and the cavalry were doing their job. And this is a pretty big area, so the horsemen did have areas to move around. But then the Alpha showed up, and some of the other, and there were more of those, particular ones that were standing above on the cliff. These ones were in combat. They're sort of they're a group of mages that have exercised power over the ghouls and such. So, for them and such, so they can and such do their own version of the job, as they all are. I don't know the correct way to put this. Well, yeah, they're just like mages, as I said, that exert their power over a ghoul. So they're sort of like beast tamers. And they intend to establish a foothold to launch more attacks against the Empire, so that way they can completely take it over. Or just take over a section of it. They aren't like vampires or anything, they're just mages with powers to control certain beasts. So, as Deku's army achieves complete victory, Margaret's meeting the very same, Gary meeting having a lot more troops lost, like around 700, to his poor planning, because he didn't realize, because he kinda underestimated them. And then Wolfheart completely underestimated them, with him just charging blindly in. Even Deku had formed some form of lines, but Wolfheart's 2,000 troops were completely wiped out to the last man. Quite literally. There's only one left, and when the mages walked over, they essentially told him to go tell the others what would happen. That if they surrendered, they would be granted mercy, since that they would not be immediately devoured and used to create more of the ghouls. He understands this and runs back on a horse that was brought to him by one of the other mages. Not all these mages are not all of them are mages, but they do have some like soul actual warriors and such. So as they continue forward, it comes back to when they meet up again in the war room. As the forces that were stranded out along the way, Wolfheart's remaining 1,000 troops were taken under command of his second in command, who was left behind. As Bell and them come back, as they are waiting at the war table, Bell sort of went saying for his men to hold the line, that he would go and ride off, and that his second command, which will be, I guess, I'm trying to think of a good name. I would just say it's Karn. No. I'll say it's the... I forget his name. I'll just call him Aaron. Aaron the Butcher, or Aaron the Berserker, one of his very first... Aaron the first Warhound. Not the first Warhound. I don't know a good title for him. If you all want to create a title for Aaron, make one up. So right now it's just Aaron. And Deku's first disciples, which are the ones who are already the trainers, Bell's at the top of the training hierarchy, so he has 4 people that could possibly be named. First one's Aaron. Make up another one. Make up 3 more and give them some titles. For Aaron, for instance, Aaron the King of Lions, or something like that. But as I continue on, Deku meets with Gary, Margaret, and Wolfheart's second in command, and Lila. And they meet up. Lila says that they haven't heard anything from Wolfheart, and she sent in the one person who came back from the battle says that they were completely wiped out, barely inflicting any casualties amongst the monsters. Bell says, "Oh, well." Well, Gary's like, crap. Margaret's like, "I agree." Bell's like, "Well, to give you my status report, we drove them off, killing around half their number," which, from the numbers that my men kept count across, that would be around 1,500 that we slaughtered. The rest were about 1,500 as well. Did he mention anything about people on the mountain or something? She's like, yeah, he did actually. There must be the ones in charge of this operation, because ghouls may be, this alpha ghoul may be smart, but I don't think he's this smart to pull off several consecutive ambushes, quote unquote, at the same time. So I was thinking there would probably be some form of person involved. My guess is that these mages have some sort of power to exert some form of will over these ghouls, or at the very least, the alpha ghoul. And they all give their status reports. I lost more men than I anticipated, but we're still going strong. How many did you lose? Around 700. So you only have 1,300 left? Oh. As Belle gives out a sigh, I got 1,250 left. Margaret has and such. And the think. Margaret, I believe I said Margaret lost. She had pretty decent fight, so I'll say she lost around 500, so she's down to 1,500. Belle's down to 1,250. The Gary's down to 1,300, and Wolfheart's remaining forces are down to 1,000. So that leaves roughly just over 3,000. Not over 3,000. Sorry. That leaves roughly over 4,000. Maybe a bit more. So let's see. 13, 20. So that's 2,800. Add the last remaining of the Gary Wolfheart's forces to Deku's. That's 1,220. So they have about 5,000, I think. I'm trying to come up with the math on top of my head, so I think it's 18,000 or 48,000. So they could. So Belle's like, so what are our options? We've inflicted very bad numbers against them, so we may be able to push completely. Dang it, stop yawning. Tried to force myself to not yawn. That could leave us with roughly around, well, they could have a lot more in reserve. I was like, maybe or maybe not. This could have been a gambit. Like, sort of, see if they can destroy the forces already appearing, try and get them off their backs. Because if so, they would have to bring their full might. So they must be now scrambling, trying to find more little packs of ghouls to come and fight us. Or, if we're unlucky enough, they'll start bringing in some other monsters. Because if they can control ghouls, which are pretty ravenous, it would be quite difficult to think they can take control over other type of beast packs. But I think we should watch out for like salamanders and sort of giant monsters in general. And I'm pretty sure a giant drake could easily take out some of Wolfheart's forces, the remaining forces. Sure, there's 1,000 of them, but it's a drake. If they bring in fully grown ones, because I'm pretty sure you didn't bring a fully grown one for me to fight that one time, Gary. Gary answering, nope. I did not. I got you one that would probably be roughly halfway to adulthood. That very small one I brought you was probably a baby. Yeah, so I suggest we all not take our chances, but I say we could either push it and see if we can wipe them out very quickly, or we can play defensive and go back across, gathering more troops. It's up to you, Gary. Technically, you're the commander now. So as Gary thinks about this, we'll leave several forces here to hold them back just in case they try to make a push for the river. That will include Bell and Wolfheart's second, Lila, Deku and Lila. You two will be fortifying around the the bridges that link us to here. Margaret and I will go back and see if we can scramble up some mercenary groups. Deku's like, are there even any mercenary groups here? He's like, there's always some traveling about. Seeing if they need some, like a lord needs extra muscle or something. He's like, I understand. So as Gary and Margaret ride back to go deal with that sort of stuff, Deku sort of speaks with this lady, and he's still decked head to toe in his armor. Like, he still has his helmet on, his fire drake. She's like, do you think you could take on an adult fire drake? He's like, I think I have a very small chance. Not gonna lie. Because the only way I won against that halfway one, do you even know how I killed that one? She's like, no, I never heard. Well, essentially, it jumped on me, had me pinned, I cut my way into it, and then crawled through it, messing up its insides, until I finally found something that looked like a heart, and then plunged my axe into it. So unless I'm gonna get that type of chance, I highly doubt I could do it. Even then, I was struggling against that. That's the toughest thing I fought. So, yeah, no. He's like, Can your gladiators form an actual defensive line? She's like, I don't know. Maybe. Like, well, they're gonna have to. Alright, I need to get back to my forces. Do you still have wizards or anything? She's like, yeah, we had a few in reserve. Just in case. Wolfheart can pull up many types of things out of nowhere. He was crazy like that. It's like, I understand. Good work, Lila. I'll be going back now. As he gets on his massive horse. And I'll say Bell has grown since then. So I'll say he's around 7'4", so he's grown even more. I don't know why, but I just want this Bell to be big. Not Artorias big from the other thing, because if I remember correctly, Artorias is 9'11". So, yeah, Bell's getting big as well, so he's around 7 feet tall, which I'm pretty sure is around the size of a Space Marine, not in his power armor. So he's around that size of a Space Marine. As he's riding, he's like 7'2" or 7'4" is what I said. So as he arrives to the thing with his drake cloak and flowing in the wind, he's like, get everyone moved up. We're going back to the bridges. Our goal is to defend them from now on. Understand? They're like, yes, sir. As they all retreat back to the bridges, they do this pretty quickly. They were already getting set up, and this is what Bell proposed, is that for them to go back and that they'll hold the bridges. His troops were already ready. They would just need Bell to give the order. As Bell got there, he's like, go. As Bell sent his forces and such, well, not Bell sent his forces, but he and his forces retreated back to the bridge, ready to defend it. His fire mages were kept pretty safe, so they're pretty, like, in the sort of middle. If there were, like, 3 rings to camp, the outer, the inner, then the center, they would be in, like, the inner. Not the center, but the inner center. Sort of. So, they're hanging out there with a guard of several spearmen. The warhounds are stationed up at the front, so that way they'll be the first ones to combat any ghoul threat, with several companies ready to jump into action. The archers are up there, and it's gotten all quiet. Belle's looking over the plans. And I'll say it's just like the end of the day. Belle and his forces haven't really had anything else come and try to rip off their face. But Belle has told them that the forces is like, so the ghouls may come for the counterattack. I'll need archers 24/7, keeping their eyes out. When it happens, blow the horn. As that is said, out of nowhere, Belle's just looking at this. Several archers like, hey, looking at what's over there. As they blow the horn, like, Belle's forces immediately get into action. Belle goes over and grabs his 2 axes, ready to kill some ghouls. The warhounds are already at the walls, ready for any form of horror that would come. The archers have already set up their Oriole things and fire, ready to go kill. The wizards have been not brought out of their tent until it's made completely necessary for them to approach. As Belle and his forces are just waiting and waiting, Belle's like at the front gate, back enough to like see if he's like on the top of the wall as well, looking over it. He's like, spears, get up here! Arm the walls, ensure they can't get in. Now to cut over back to Lila, she and her forces have set up a crude wall as well. Belle's forces, since Belle's warriors comes from all walks of life, so they could have been a farmer, a weaver, pottery maker, or even a stone, or a mason, I believe is the word. A stonemason. So they got a nice hard wall, or stable wall, at the very least set up relatively quickly, while Liliana's have primarily been soldiers, and like if they had one single stonemason, he was like, with the workers he had, he was able to set up a okay wall. Belle's might as well been Fort Knox compared to his, but oh well. So as they're up there ready to fire down, Liliana's troops see the thing, but instead of them being able to get a warning, a horde of flying ghouls immediately start ravaging through the thing. Then as that's happening, as the spearmen and gladiators trying to get their stuff in order, Liliana gets her weapons at the ready. She uses a glaive, and she's like, what's going on out here? As she sees as a guy is trying to run away, 2 lesser ghouls fly down, and one of them stabs him through, and then picks him up along with help with the other one. As he's just dropped after getting flown high, he's just dropped. As she sees him hit the ground, it's just a splat. As she realizes, she's like, archers! Start firing on them! As the archers are firing upon them, trying to get them off the forces, several beta ghouls break down through the cheaply made walls. Now the forces are starting to break. Some of them try to make a run for it, and some of them actually are successful, not in getting away, but making a run for it. They're later taken down by several flying ghouls and easily taken back to a place where they can be used for making more ghouls. As the beta ghouls start ravaging through the woman's troops, she manages to form a somewhat decent line, not a very good one. They all break through. Then two of the warriors that are with the mages see her. She prepares her weapon, and several soldiers run at them, but then are instantly taken down and then dragged away by beta ghouls and lesser ghouls alike. As she sees them, she tells the men to rush forward. As they try to rush forward, they're instantly essentially taken down by several flying, lesser, and beta ghouls. She decides that, well, if she's gonna die taking one of these two with her. As she raises her two daggers going to fight them, the first one instantly just disarms her. Just very quickly and swiftly disarms her and then just stabs her and runs her through. As he has her picked up on his sword, she's like, oh, God. As she's just sitting there, then just goes limp, he easily tosses her off, with them giving commands for the ghouls to head over the bridge, trying to flank around to mess up the other one holding the bridge. At this point, Bel's forces are completely under attack, but thanks to their better made walls and archers already at the ready, when the horde of flying ghouls come rushing down, Bel's forces immediately just start taking them down like flak turrets. They're just taking down several hordes of things. Sure, one or two may attempt to grab a guy, but they're pretty much swiftly taken down by Bel's spearmen, swordsmen, or even one of the warhounds. As the warhounds are at the front ready to go, a line of spearmen have formed in front of them, with swordsmen at the back ready to go. The warhounds are sort of getting hyped up. They're wanting to go out and fight, but Bel is one of the only things holding them back, because the warhounds are also some of the more aggressive, just like the warhounds from 40k are, is that they're the biggest, toughest, and best fighters. And that also incorporates some of the more aggressive ones, because an aggressive gladiator fighter can usually end up how Bel was very aggressive when it came to fighting. He was able to end matches pretty quickly and very swiftly. So several of them pretty much having the same attitude and kind of similar in size to him. They all follow him, and he's a head taller than pretty much anyone else there. Not a head taller, a foot taller than anyone else there. So when finally lesser ghouls start getting attacking and start climbing the makeshift walls, Bel orders his troops to come down from the walls and to form lines behind the warhounds and the shield wall. The mages at this point have been brought out, and they're lobbing molten fireballs that are catapults. They land into the massive horde of lesser and beta ghouls that are rushing at them. Like with the other ones, a couple of those swordsmen following the mages who have been sort of imbued with their power, with magical power, a boost. As they're crashing, the ghouls are crashing against it and are climbing up. So the volleys of archer fire taking down a lot of them. As the wizards fire do their thing, as some of them start getting over, the spearmen are at the ready, and when they leap, they just force out their spears, impaling several of them. With the ones that survive, the warhounds, or that are getting past the spearmen's spears, the warhounds are instantly just slicing away. Very direct thing. And after several minutes of this, and Bel taking down several flyers along with lesser ones, the thing is taken down. by several beta ones that rush the front lines. At this point, Bell pushes the men aside and takes the fight to the beta ones, because the betas will tear through their lines significantly more quickly than the lesser ones. As Bell uses his axes and slices them to shreds, leaving deep gashes in them, he's keeping the entire horde back from the gateway. And several of the lesser ones leap on him. He actually at one point uses his horn on his helmet and gets one right into the head. And I'll say he's actually dipped, these horns have been dipped in silver as well. So as it gets impaled, it's just burning, sizzling, and then it stops. As Bell sort of tosses it off, throwing his head. He's like, as it falls down. Bell's troops are not wiped out whatsoever. They don't even really have any casualties. Then at this point, that's when the horde of other ones that were told to go around, they can cover ground really quickly. The only reason why they haven't just come in a giant tide is that the forces are thinking tactically, as well as ensuring that they'll have enough forces to actually come in when it'll come in handy. As that massive tide of ones that are coming from the back end up rushing Bell's back lines, several volleys of archers are taken off, so Bell has to separate his 750, 625 soldiers are put on each side, consisting of roughly the same amount. But several more spearmen are committed to the front, with a few more warhounds committed to the back, with more archers and such, because they're coming across a giant bridge, so there's quite a lot of distance cover. So as Bell's front line is staying strong, and as well as having a wizard devoted to both sides, well, 2 wizards on Bell's side, and soon enough, when things get bad enough, a wizard will be devoted to the other side. As Bell and them sort of get ready for the whole, prepared to kill every single or die to the last man standing, it starts to just get worse and worse. Bell's forces are starting to have to fight down infinitely more, and then the worst thing possible happens. Bell's forces runs out of arrows. They've taken down at least a few, several hundred, maybe 600 with arrows alone and fire. In general, they've taken down probably roughly 600 600 ghouls in total, which is quite a lot considering this battle has only been going on for 30 minutes. With arrows alone. For those ones that are able to get past the arrows and are able to jump at the soldiers, there's probably roughly 300 that have been killed. So in total, 900 forces have been killed. And with the ones coming up from the back, those were the reserves, they're still firing arrows in the back, not at the front. So as Bell's front line is completely and utterly have to be devoted to melee, Bell's forces start taking up the walls and forcing the enemy back. Some of you may think, well, why didn't Bell just stick to the walls already? Well, Bell didn't want to have the possibility that if they send up betas, they just crash through them. Or in worst case scenario, they send the alpha to his location, so that way it can easily tear through his walls. And the battle rages on for several more minutes. Spearmen at the walls using their spears and jabbing down. With swordsmen, for the ones that try to jump up. Sorry. Give me a second to breathe. Trying to do that in all one breath is kind of annoying. As Bell's forces are pushing the enemy back until eventually the attack is just called off. They have lost significantly more people, more monsters than they actually ever anticipated going against Deku's little group. or little legion of troops and such. Sorry if you hear the dogs barking in the back. They're barking for dumb reasons. Probably. As Bell's forces have been able to just barely hold on. Actually, they didn't just barely hold on. They held on so good that it makes it look like people who do rock climbing look like jokes. And going to like pretty much sheer cliffs make them look like jokes. Because of how hard they had to hold on. And they didn't really suffer any casualties. Sure, a few of them were pulled over. Pulled over because a beta ghoul grabbed one of them, like their spear things, and then dragged them over. Sure, I'll say like with Bell's 125, well, not 125, 1250 troops, he lost about 200. Taking out thousands of ghouls for just 200. And since they had the defensive capabilities as well, I'll say the lady got swarmed pretty easily. And I said they probably had 1,500 troops. 1,500 troops and such. So that's 1,500, 1,500, 1,500. So that's, put that together, 450. Combining with that barely destroyed army of ghouls of that person to around 2.5. That's around, let's see, 7 to, around 7 to 8,000 troops ready to be deployed. And since they used a lot of force to break down the women's, or Lila's, with around, I'll guess, 3,000, and Bell getting a total combined might of 4,000, with a lot of betas, lesser, and flying ghouls, but the alpha wasn't there. If the alpha was there, it might be a different story. The alpha is sort of the ace that the people will use in case of anything else. So as Bell's forces have been able to hold on, Gary and them sort of come back after Margaret, as Gary went to check over at Lila's little group, and they returned with roughly, after announcing, sort of sent runners back to go check on it. Margaret checked on after coming back, Margaret checked on the forces, on Lila's forces at first, with roughly, I'll say 1,000 men, just in case they came into heavy contact or had to defend a position. She came across and see everything was slaughtered. And Lila was on the ground. No, not on the ground. She was actually on a pole, strung up. And then she starts wondering, freaking out. Oh God! She rushed over, having her little troop march triple time to make it over to Bell's. As they came over, they just see we're at the front of Bell's gates and such, just hordes, just piles and massive amounts of body. As several of the troopers, several of the gladiators that yell, "Hey, Bell! Margaret's here!" As he's like, "What are you doing? Let them in!" As they're like, "Get in here! They could be attacking at any moment, even during the daylight." As her 1,000 troops get in, he's like, "Huh, it's good to see ya." As his armor is still bloody along with his weapons, none of his troops really slept. They were all too busy staying awake just in case a counterattack came around. As they're several of them tell the new people who arrive to take up their positions and to keep an eye out for anything. As Margaret's forces come over and take over for Bell's watch duty and such, all of Bell's soldiers and such go and just fall asleep somewhere. as Bell discusses the tactics with Margaret. At this point, he's taken off his helmet and it's just sitting there. The 3 scars that she gave him are still there, clear as day. He's like, well, looks like your scar here healed pretty well. 3 you gave me an intimidation factor, thankfully. As long as I got a few more scars, as he gives like a little chuckle. So what has Gary been able to do in the 1 day he's been gone? She's like, he's sent several letters to other lords as well as a mercenary group. They're pretty good. They're made up of Amazons. He's like, the Amazons. Heard stories about them, never met one in person. She's like, yeah, they're very talented apparently. They may actually heard they have some adventurers from Orario or whatever. He's like, what's Orario? She's like, oh yeah, you're a slave or farmer. Essentially, it's a place where a bunch of gods and goddesses reside, and there's like apparently like a giant dungeon there that people go in and fight monsters and such, and earn money and such to like, and they're trying to apparently conquer the dungeon, or trying to go like, yeah, conquer it. And he's like, well, that's cool. Maybe if I ever get free, I'll head there. If I get free, I'll head there with my with Integra and the rest. She's like, yeah, apparently it is a pretty nice city and such to set. Apparently, quite a few families actually live there. Several slaves that have earned their freedom apparently go there and actually live pretty decent lives as adventurers and such. Since some of them have already, like, usually are pit fighters, they put their skills to test in the dungeon, and usually exceed pretty well. Mel's like, is that so? She's like, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Well, he's like, well, how long do you think until we get reinforced? And he's like, also, how's Lila's troop doing? She's like, oh, they were slaughtered. As he's like, really? They were slaughtered? How? Well, from what I can tell, there were massive footprints, so my guess is that the Alpha Ghoul was sent to attack the weak point. It's like, yeah, that's probably true. She's like, I also noticed waves upon waves of corpses of little ghouls out there. He's like, yeah, we got hit pretty hard. Like, how many did you lose? By my count, we lost around another 200. And you took upon waves of ghouls and took those down. It's like, yeah. My archers were the MVPs of this. My archers and the mages were the MPVs. Most valuable players. MVPs of this. Or, yeah. Yeah. Most valuable killer. MVKs, actually. Most valuable killers in this. They were my MVKs. I suspect that the archers took down well over 600 of them before we had to start killing them with mainly fire and spears and such, so corpses stacked up very rapidly against the walls. And I actually think the walls actually did, with the corpse along the walls, it actually provided more fortifications. Well, what do you mean? Well, see, as they were climbing, they kept on, like, stumbling with how they were climbing over their comrades. With the shifting of the bodies, they sort of kept tumbling over and over and over and over again. It was, like, quite funny. She's like, oh, yeah? He's like, yeah, well, I'm gonna go pass out. I've been up the entire day and night. If anything happens, wake me and the warhounds. Have fun, Margaret. She's like, well, I had to go. He's like, no, you aren't. You're staying right here. The other bridge can go screw itself. We can cut it down if we really need to. And as he's just like, "Now stay here and watch over the gladiators." As he will like lay down on his sleep roll, yeah. And she's like, "Alright." As she orders her troops to keep an eye out and to be ready just in case another counterattack is launched. And that's where I'll be ending this. This was decently long. I hope y'all have a nice day, nice night. And also remember, there will be 3 trainers you can name, and as well as give titles. Don't forget, Aaron, his second in command. I'll also say a little bit about Aaron. Aaron did a massive part on the backlines with holding back like dozens of beta ghouls with several of the other warhounds. So name Aaron, give Aaron a title, along with naming 3 other of the first of the warhounds that were sort of taught under Deku, his like first disciples, the first disciples of the warhound. And as they continue, and give them names and titles. So it could be a guy or girl, and just give them a name and a title. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you all have a nice day, nice night, nice life.